The Vietnam War was over, but the Cold War was not. The world was still divided, nuclear weapons still stood ready, and new conflicts were already forming. This is what happened after Vietnam. After the last American helicopters lifted off from Saigon in 1975, the United States was a superpower in crisis. The long, brutal war had left deep scars. At home, public trust in the government had plummeted. Protests had rocked the nation, and the country was exhausted by the cost in both lives and money. The military, once seen as invincible, was forced to reckon with its first major defeat, shaking its confidence to the core. This period of self-doubt and introspection in America was what historians would later call the Vietnam Syndrome, a reluctance to commit U.S. forces overseas. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Iron Curtain, the Soviet Union was watching closely. From their perspective in Moscow, America's retreat from Vietnam was a sign of weakness. They saw an opportunity. Soviet leaders believed the tide of history was turning in their favor. They felt they'd gained momentum in the global struggle for influence. This perception fueled a new, more aggressive phase of the Cold War. The balance of power, which had seemed so stable for so long, felt like it was shifting. The world was holding its breath, wondering what would happen next, with the memory of Vietnam so fresh and the horrifying potential of nuclear war always looming. Another direct military confrontation between the superpowers was simply too dangerous. Neither Washington nor Moscow wanted a repeat of the Cuban Missile Crisis, where the world came terrifyingly close to atomic annihilation. So, the nature of the conflict had to change. The battlefield was no longer just about tanks and soldiers. It became a global chessboard where the game was played through influence and subversion. This new strategy was fought on multiple fronts. Politically, both sides used diplomacy, propaganda, and espionage to win allies and undermine their rivals. Economically, they offered aid and trade deals to developing nations, hoping to pull them into their respective orbits, capitalist or communist. And most significantly, they fought through smaller regional conflicts. Every nation, from the smallest island to the largest continent, became a potential flashpoint in this worldwide ideological struggle. The Cold War was about to go truly global. Even as both sides avoided direct war, the nuclear shadow only grew darker. On the surface, there were peace talks and arms limitation treaties, like the SALT agreements, but behind the scenes, an unprecedented arms race was accelerating. Both the US and the Soviet Union were building larger, more sophisticated, and more destructive nuclear arsenals. Missiles were placed in silos, submarines prowled the oceans, and bombers were on constant alert. This terrifying logic was known as mutually assured destruction, or MAD. The idea was that if one side launched an attack, the other would retaliate with overwhelming force, ensuring the complete destruction of both. It was a fragile and terrifying peace, held together by the promise of total annihilation. Fear became the ultimate deterrent, a new and invisible form of global control. The world lived under the constant low-level anxiety that a single miscalculation could trigger the end of civilization. So, if the superpowers couldn't fight each other directly, how did the Cold War continue? They fought by proxy. Instead of American soldiers fighting Soviet soldiers, they armed, trained, and funded opposing sides in civil wars and regional conflicts all across the globe. This was the era of the proxy war. In Angola, the US backed one faction while the Soviets and Cubans backed another. In Afghanistan, the CIA secretly armed the Mujahideen to fight against the Soviet invasion. In Nicaragua, the Reagan administration supported the Contras against the socialist Sandinista government. From Central America to Southern Africa to the Middle East, the world became a patchwork of these proxy battlefields. The end of the Vietnam War wasn't the end of the fighting, it was just the end of one chapter. The conflict had simply metastasized, spreading its ideological battle to every corner of the planet, often with devastating consequences for the local populations caught in the middle. Understanding this period after Vietnam is crucial because it directly shaped the world we live in today. The alliances forged, the borders drawn, and the political resentments that simmered during these years are still with us. The Cold War's final chapters explain so much about modern geopolitics. From ongoing conflicts in the Middle East to tensions in Eastern Europe, history didn't just stop after Vietnam. It simply changed direction, setting the stage for the world we know now. Thanks for watching. To learn more about how the conflicts of the past created the world of today, make sure to subscribe to our channel.